I love that.
There weren't even any DRC things, eh, Paul?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
No.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right.
Okey-dokey. Welcome to the May meeting of the Pelican Marsh Foundation Board of Directors. I have a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes.
I so moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okey-dokey. So, President's report. This, just as a point of information, we will not be having a July meeting this summer. Not due to lack of interest, but because there's just not a lot going on in July. Next meeting, June meeting, we will be voting on our rules review. So all of the foundation rules have been reviewed and are going to be discussed by the board offline, and then we're going to serve notice to the community, and we're going to be voting on those rules at the next meeting. So that's about it, really. We don't have a lot to talk about this month. To turn it over to Nathaniel, who has a few things to say. The treasurer's report.
Meeting might be shorter than your drive down here. Okay, I was putting the treasurer's report on the screen. I see there's plenty of people at home watching also. I'll just go through this kind of quickly. They say that the directions on how to give a speech. Here's how you give a speech. The old man taught the young man how to give a speech. First of all, you tell them what you're going to tell them. Then you tell them. And then after that, you tell them what you just told them. And that's how you give a speech. So that's what I'm going to do, except for that last part. So this page right here tells you what I'm getting ready to tell you. There's our financial highlights there. Overall expenses through the month of April, still running over budget. However, this variance is mainly due to the timing of expenses, such as payroll, and should normalize to budget over the summer months when activity slows down. On a positive note, fitness and social activities results continue to be better than budget, with continued strong participation from the members. Our food and beverage department, Nest, has incurred a loss of about $142,000 through March because it takes more time to close the months with inventories. We only have the March numbers. We always run about a month behind compared to the meeting that we have here compared with the calendar month of the Nest. So when you have your April meeting here, we'll be talking about the March numbers there, and next month add one to each of those. The loss came from being having a restaurant with all the expenses of a restaurant and not being allowed to open the first 2 months of the year. And so at the end of March, that loss had not gotten any bigger. In fact, it had come down a tiny bit. And unfortunately, I will tell you this, friends, the Nest, like any restaurant, has a huge amount of expenses. And so we need a lot of revenue. And everybody in Naples has lots of customers in November, December, January, February, and even March. And we had the bad luck of being able to finally get permission to open our restaurant right at the very end of the season when everybody's packing their bags ready to split town. So it's kind of like opening a Walmart store December 26th. It's a kind of a bad timing, but we're looking at this for the long run. I'm sure at the end of the year that loss, there will be still some loss there at the end of the year because now we got to pay our dues and get through the summer. And we did not get the icing on the cake for the winter. However, I do expect next year to be drastically different because we're going to be able to sell food and drinks to all of us here in this room and everybody that lives here for the winter months. And popularity at the Nest is very, very good. So it does bother me that we had this COVID problem and this inflation problem and the slowdown at the county getting us open, but we're doing everything we can to make you happy there. And I think everybody seems to be pretty happy at the Nest. Resales, where we get our money for most of our accounts. The resales came from houses getting sold. We get a fee. We expected that to dive like a rock, and lo and behold, it has not. I'll show you that in just a moment. Resale fees are better than expected. Let's go to page 2, please. Now on page 2, numbers. Try not to let it make you dizzy. There's 3 columns there. The operating fund is the one we operate out of, our daily expenses. The HOA fee fills that account up at the beginning of the year. It had $509,000 in it. Right now it has 2.6 million, and that's because everybody paid their HOA fees. And I'd like to report that everybody paid their HOA fees quickly, and the communities got it to the administration office quickly this year. It was a landmark year. Everybody did really good. So it looks like in the operating fund, we have this huge amount of money, and this just looks that way at the beginning of the year because everybody pays their fees. Now we're going to pay Comcast and all our employees. That will go back down. The second one is the replacement fund. That's the important fund where all the money sits so that we can pay for fixing and replacing things that we know are going to wear out. This board has taken 100% of all the income from the resale fees starting January 1, I think it was, very early in the year, and just said, pack that replacement fund until we meet our obligations in that replacement fund. And then we will go back to spreading it out in the capital and the operating fund. And lo and behold, way before schedule, we just did that. The house sales were so good that we have now already put all the money, there's like $250,000 that was required, into the replacement fund. And it is now funded for the year 2022. Congratulations, guys. That's very good. It has $666,000 in it. And that money is just going to sit there until we spend it on things that are getting replaced like it's supposed to be. Third column, capital fund. This is the fund that gets replenished with part of the money from the resale fees, and your board uses it to improve your amenities in some fashion. Something new, something better. Not replacing stuff, but adding stuff. Well, the nest was the last big thing we added, and you can see that because of the nest finalization, even at January 1 at the top of your page, you see 280,000, and now it's down to 33,000. That's because we got the nest up and rolling. Next page, please. A lot of the stuff I've already mentioned, but I want you to notice that the fitness revenues are already, they're over budget for this part of the year. You'll see that it's 148,000. Fitness, we really thought that COVID fear would be much greater than it is. It's not that bad. In fact, kind of interesting, look at that third column, year-to-date actual 2021. Look at that, 108,000. So our fitness revenues at this point in the year was 108,000 last year, and we're at 148 this year. That's a whopping increase. That's up there in the 40% range, and that's very, very nice. You go down to court sports, you'll see that court sports, our actual was 16,000, and we budgeted revenues of 10,000. So that shows us as being that our income is not as great as we expected it to be, and that's because we do have more expenses in the winter, and they will drop in the summer. And as you know, summer's here. Social is very interesting. Look at social. Under social, you'll see revenues 73,000, and we budgeted 18. I mean, just crazy how much that social, and this will be Lynn, wonderful Lynn, is putting together projects, programs, trivias, and whatever. She's just totally kicking butt. And so we're over budget by hundreds of percentage points. If you go down at the bottom, you'll see food and beverage. Food and beverage is the big block at the bottom. That would be the nest. And it shows at the very bottom that 143,000 that I mentioned earlier, that we are behind schedule from January 1 because of the January-February problem. But if you look in that column of numbers up above it that make up that number, you'll see the very top one, the 40,000, and the bottom one, 144,000. Those numbers actually include some things which we're going to get back. For example, early in the year, we had to buy all the liquor to put in the bars that we can now sell. So cost of goods, a lot of that might have things that we will now collect money on. So it's not as bad as it looks, and I expect it to get better. All right, now the fun page, page 4. Page 4, just like you know it, we had no houses for sale in Pelican Marsh at the beginning of the year, or even in Thanksgiving, and so we were gloomy, and we thought, wow, we're not going to sell many houses. And lo and behold, there's 49 houses sold, 4 of them to Pelican Marsh residents, which they get their feedback. And so we got 45 houses sold that paid their fee January, February, March, and April. It's just incredible. We were a little worried about could we really get 31 or not, and we're at 45. So we're already over halfway to our year's budget for selling houses. And nothing's for sale, but apparently at these prices, people are willing to sell. Okay, I told you what I was going to tell you. I told you. I'm not going to tell you what I told you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nate. I will add to Nate's report that because of this deficit that we have incurred at Nest, the board has decided to ratchet back on non-essential spending during this year until we know where we stand over the summer. It's all unknown to us. It's a new year, new restaurant. We haven't done this before. We know the summer is going to have a decreased revenue stream for us because of decreased census here at Pelican Marsh. I know the Nest people are working hard on preparing a marketing plan. Reach out. We hope that the community uses the restaurant over the summer, and we'll see how it goes. Right now, all of our spending priorities are kind of on hold, except for the essential stuff, until we have a clear picture of what that actually means. And now, Paul, the foundation manager's report.
Okay, so with summer arriving now, we will likely start to see things slow down around the community center. Just a reminder for those members heading up north, don't forget to complete all your necessary cleaning and maintenance that needs to be done around your home. And as a reminder, also, it's a good idea to have some home watch service or a friend monitor your home while you're away to prevent unforeseen issues that may happen inside the home. For those members sticking around this summer, please be aware that this is the time we do a lot of our projects over the summer, such as cleaning the walkways and the patio decks around the building. We're going to be releveling the bocce courts this summer, and also cleaning inside the building, the carpets, and the top floors. So please take note of all the detour signs we'll have up during those time periods when the work is being completed. As a reminder, the CDD meeting for this month has been moved to this Friday, the 27th, or next Friday, the 27th at 9 a.m. The meeting is being held here at the community center. Updates on the landscaping projects throughout Pelican Marsh, as well as plans for their new gate entry houses, will be given at that meeting. To make sure all members are updated and informed of what's happening in Pelican Marsh, we encourage everyone to provide us with your email address. So please see Linda or Monique in the office, so you can give their contact information to them, and we'll get you in the system and all the information sent out to you as it comes in. Lastly, as always, I want to, on behalf of the staff, want to make sure every member and their guest has a positive experience when using our amenities and services here at the foundation. And if any member has a suggestion or a concern, we want to know about it. So just send me an email, and I'm going to do my very best to see what can be done to make that happen. And lastly, your continuous kind words and encouragement we receive each day makes our jobs that much easier and rewarding, and we thank you for your support here at Pelican Marsh. And that is my report.
Thanks, Paul. Do any board member comments? Do we have any resident comments?
We check online.
Hi, Rich.
I've got
Rich Benson.
Rich Benson, Portofino. You guys are really doing a great job on Nest. I enjoy today's reviews of your financials. But it's not clear to me where does the responsibility for the financial performance of the Nest lie? Is it with the committee? Is it with the board? That's my first question. And then the second, how will that information be more transparent to residents, or at least people who come to the meetings? And thirdly, it seems like revenues are certainly key. So some sort of metric about number of visits per month, number of dollars spent, those sort of things would be really important to look at this point. Start to find ways to make those numbers grow. So those are just the comments I've got.
Online, I can't hear the question. You might repeat whatever question.
So the question from Rich is about Nest financials and how they're being monitored and assessed. I'm going to ask, Bob Genetti is here. He's the chairman of the oversight committee that we have helping the administration monitor Nest, and perhaps you could say a few words about
Well, would you mind coming up here and borrow my microphone?
this. Or have a seat at Brian's chair.
Oh, perfect.
What we do, we have a committee, and on that committee, there's 7 people that review the financials that we get from Nest. And that also has to do with feedback that we get from owners here. And so we examine those numbers. Now, as far as who's running that, Chase with Crave is the one who's running that piece of the business, meaning they're the ones running the operation. He is responsible for those numbers and meeting those projections, and he reports to us. And then we then have meetings with him and others just to resolve any issues we have or to be addressing concerns that we might have. Then internally, there is Aaron, Juan, and Mo that are the managers that run the operation, and then Chase is the one that oversees that. Then from the committee, then we talk to board members, and Matt is a liaison to the board. He's on that committee with us. We had a meeting just, what was it, yesterday or the day before? And I have regular meetings with Chase. Paul and I are kind of in sync with making sure that everything that I cover, he knows, everything he covers, I know, so that we're on the same page. I hope I answered that for you.
Almost.
Okay.
So how do we know about that? How does that go to Nate?
I mean, the residents, how do the residents
Daniel's
know?
numbers didn't present the level of detail. I think you seem to have your finger.
Be broken out in a particular fashion.
Just, some kind of numbers. How are we doing?
So you're looking for a plus minus, is that the idea?
You can decide the metric, but I think one of the metrics would be like how many sales per month, how many visitors, visitors increasing, declining. That would lead to some sort of marketing plan.
Sure.
That would lead. So those are the things. I mean,
That's a very good question.
So I'm sure you're doing these things.
Right.
It's just how do we find out is my question.
Sure.
Because you don't find out when you look at the top level, even from the Daniel. It just says we're down 154, and that's because we started late. But that doesn't say what happened in the last
Month or two
5
or
weeks,
whatever
6
it was.
weeks,
Exactly.
where our trajectory is. And that's basically a stop hole in this. I feel that there should be more transparency about what's happening. We've been here enough, and we should know that there's some things we should do differently, maybe better, maybe worse.
I can help maybe answer that question a little bit or clarify it. Originally, when I put this project together, I put a performer together, and we went through it with the finance committee, and we hashed through it. Through that, in the projections, for just as an example, the first 4 months of the year made up 50% of the sales, knowing that we're going to drop down in June, July, August, September, pick up in October, November, December. So it was kind of like that bell curve that goes down. In those months of January, February, March, April, they were going to be $117,000 is what we were projecting in sales. We didn't open in January, so we lost that chunk. So then we didn't open in February until the very end of the month. So now we're going into March and we were running at about a 20% occupancy at the time. Why? As well as a new company coming in, they have to train everybody, get up and going. So in that month, that third month, we ended up doing $117,000 or $116,000 in sales. They also, but that's one thing, that's the sales. Now we have to look at where food costs in line, where labor costs in line. So we have a ticker sheet, we'll call it, that lets us know what the sales were that night. So we look at that in our committee, what the sales are, what the labor is, food costs we really can't do until the end of the month. And then what we do is we know that if it's $5,000 on a given day over 20 days, it's going to be up to 117,000. If it's $2,000 a day for that many days, it's going to be 60,000. And then we look at it and say, okay, based on projections, if it's $60,000 and the food cost is going to be 33% to 34%, and beverage cost is going to be X, then we'll be tracking well. Now then we go back to the numbers that they give us and analyze those. Hard part. Just hand this to everybody out there and say, here's my business and here everything is. I will have 3,500 people telling me how the business should be run. That's the difficult part. That's where we are analyzing that. We have people that are in the business. We have people financially looking at it. So what ends up happening is it goes from our projections. And then what we did is we said, okay, now that we are up and going, Chase, you put projections together, right? Well, it's hard for him, obviously, to pick out what's happening here in our neighborhood. He's never spent any time here besides just what he sees. And then the other thing we're doing is I then took his projections, which I totally agree with, compared to mine in terms of the cost of goods and everything. And so what I did is I looked at it and I said, okay, Chase, I saw we took your projections. Now we're going to take your new sales projections and let's just match them up to see how those numbers come out. Again, we're going to be dipping down in the winter or the summer months, and it's going to hurt us. I mean, just because of that volume. So we are tracking against that, and I talk to them once a week. Like last Thursday, I was here for an hour and a half. Today at 3:00, we have a meeting with the two managers and Chase to review a bunch of things that are on our agenda that we want answers to. Again, the hard, I appreciate where you're coming from. I really do.
I appreciate all the work you do. Obviously, there should be some kind of action work.
So Bob, why don't we take that? We're working on that spreadsheet. We have our initial projections for the year we put together, which we work with Chase. Then we're taking that, we're updating it with the actual numbers compared to those projections each month. Maybe we can condense that snapshot for the membership so they can see, here are our projections for each month. Here's where we ended up that month. And then that'll give you an idea how we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, what you said is quite satisfying, I think. I had questions, how are we doing? Because I walk by and I can't tell. Is it more than we thought, or less than we thought, or right on? So it's like, okay, there are now 10% more people than we expected, or there's 20% more or something. And the revenues are 8% less, and our labor costs 10% more, and our food costs 5%, whatever. Just sort of some outline so we can get a pulse without putting in extra work.
No, it's not that. It's a matter of there's things that we deal with on a weekly basis that I can put projections together and say, here's what they are. And then all of a sudden we find out the cost of goods has gone up. Okay, now we have to hurry up and catch up to that and do it in a way that's kind of not going to be damaging the sales. And so I could sit there and say, here's what we're planning on doing next month. And all of a sudden I'm going to come back in 2 weeks later and say, okay, guess what? We just altered it. You know, and I don't want to give mixed messages and say, oh, it's all rosy here. And let me just tell you how wonderful it is. I'm going to just be honest with you and just say, here's where we are. I can tell you this, in terms of projections and sales, we're down on last month, okay? But we also went down on labor. But then you have to then look at it and say, all right, so what's bottom line effect? But then cost of goods went up. So we're talking about menus and things of that nature. Then we have to look at features. But the biggest thing that it really gets down to is marketing and get people in their chairs over there. Yes, you know.
Think about putting out some kind of, you may want to, the spreadsheet that you showed up there, assuming that the cost to separate a restaurant was X amount. Most businesses, that is a norm. do the projections, do your costs, retail and so forth, you're making a payment on that. I understand this is an amenity and it's for records, it's a nonprofit. We have to do it that way, but maybe something that is showing the projections and the income and spending, with that having to be a caveat to the side so that people don't look at it as that they open up the doors and they lost $142,000.
Right,
Really did.
and then when I saw that.
Because you really, you have to do that way because how you present it as a board of directors. But at the same time, if you were owning a business, you'd be either people or you're going to be willing to do that. So when people are looking at this from the outside, if you're looking at it saying, wow, this isn't doing well, maybe I shouldn't know that. So be very careful the way you do present it. Just like Bob said, you're going to have everybody telling you what you should do to make up that 140.
I think part of the answer is already on its way. Paul, will you put up page 3 of the report I just read?
I'm going to jump in real quick, Nate. I would just like everybody to know that yesterday we had a mini meeting of the restaurant overview committee. And there was probably 15 to 18 phenomenal ideas that came out of it that when we're meeting with the Nest group, we're going to review a lot of those. And Bob is going to chariot all that. And I know full well that brand new restaurant, I've done a bunch of them. And you stumble, you forget things, you know, it just happens. So we're going to work with them all through the summer and all the way through the end of the year to try to get this up and running. And because we all know, we watch TV, how bad cost of goods are getting out of control, that it's going to be a challenge, just, you know, to keep lower prices and staffing and everything else. So we're going to work with them as much as we can.
Hey, don't get me wrong, I don't know if you're stumbling about it.
I don't want to say stumbling in a bad way. It's just, you know.
There's always room for understanding where you are and understanding where you want to go.
Right.
If you don't know where you want to go, you'll get there.
Right.
So
Yeah, it was a very good meeting.
Know what you're doing and I'm confident. When Nate says we're 142,000, it doesn't matter to me, like this other fellow said. That's money we put in, that's booze. That's a big part of it.
Well, the situation is such that the Nest and the foundation's relationship has a number of eyes on it, not just the oversight committee, but the finance committee is reviewing these financials every month. And we've got a couple of guys on the finance committee who are looking at this more than that. And it is something that we think about all the time, because obviously our responsibility to the community is to manage the finances properly. So this is one of the reasons why we're dialing back on non-essential spending this year until we're clear about what the developments are going to be financially for us over the summer, how things look here. But the operations budget, which pays for this restaurant or pays for the shortfalls, if there are any, is pretty good shape and continues to be in better shape. And so we are reasonably confident that we're going to get through this first year with a number of body blows, not just the delayed opening, thank you, Collier County, but also the labor market problems that we've had, the supply chain problems, the inflation problems that every business, every new business has. And opening a restaurant in this environment has been a real eye opener. It's been difficult, but
running a restaurant today is not easy. Enough you guys know about Tony Ridgway and a bunch of restaurants. I've heard it in talks about the challenge of keeping labor. It's not easy, particularly when you're in a community where it's a contained population and it goes up and down in different ways versus the whole system.
okay, well, let me just finish by saying that we understand that the residents have an interest in this and would like to see something easily digestible and available to them so they can see what how things are going month to month, and we'll figure out that.
We'll keep it very high level though.
I'd like to finish my point. Each month I give a treasurer's report, and at the bottom, you'll see the one I did this month. And remember what I said about we're running 1 month behind with the financials? So on today's treasury report, we only have March, which is our only full month that we had done at that time. But down the bottom, what I'll start doing is lining up the months in a row so that you can easily compare them. Instead of just having one for year to date, which was March, and March was year to date, but we had 1 month of activity. Now, next month, you'll see one for April. And then I think it'll be a lot easier to compare and see numbers too. Plus, they're going to work out maybe even something more informative. But this thing at the bottom is going to kind of give you a lot of what you're looking for those at home also interested.
I would just add, I think there's different vocabulary in restaurants. Number of covers, number of, so covers and value of each cover, another metric.
Yeah. Also turns.
They're all peanuts versus steaks.
Yeah, you know, Bob and I, when we ran those numbers, I think you and I pretty much are almost in accord with they could project it, which was January and February. Let me tell you, from a PR standpoint, I think we all want this to happen. Got to be careful of, take a look at where we are now. When you do the projections, you only have the balance of the year.
Exactly.
You're going to get hit with the months that are in deficit during the summer. You come at the end of the year and in January said, you know, the food and beverage operation for the annual year of 2022 is $400,000. They'll be burning us at the stake because they don't know.
Exactly.
So I think the smart thing to do, okay, from a PR standpoint, is go to that basis and say, here what we did this month, this month, this month, this month, and that way is eliminate the big surprise.
No, exactly. I know what you're talking about. And we are.
Have no choice. But
Right, and we're not,
just
and
looking
believe me,
at
we're
the
trying to be
end
as
of the year.
transparent. If you look at that number that you got up there, it was 144 and 142. Bottom line is 144 was the startup cost. We had 142 at the bottom, which means that we ended up making $2,000 in the, so basically broke even. Okay, so and now you're gonna go into some deficit over the summer because it's just gotta be that way. And then it picks up later on in the fall, and next year you'll have 50% of your sales in 4 months. So then you have the profits at that point.
I think you got to take a look at this summer, how bad months the summer might be. You might consider cutting some hours back because overhead's the killer. You got to fix overhead with these fees that you have to pay. The point is that you can take a look at weeks where the numbers are bigger than you expected for the deficit.
That's what's analyzed all the time. Yeah.
Then you got a real problem on your hands.
Just one other thing, this,
We're getting a message here that they can't hear you, Rich. So if you have more comments, please come to the microphone.
yeah. I know we're relying on Crave, and Crave is a catering business
It's
primarily.
a company.
I don't know if they run any
3 others.
bars.
3 others of these formats.
Because I just want to be sure, you know, that we've really thought through all the liabilities and legalities of running like a dram shop. I talked to some friends who are lawyers. Like if somebody gets overserved and they drive and run into something and someone gets hurt, liabilities and how that is all covered and protected and insured. I'm sure that we've thought about all that. But,
We have all.
It's in the agreement.
Good.
Yes.
Good. Having not seen the agreement, I did.
Oh, okay.
It's good to know that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Bob, I just have one question. I know you gotta leave.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I think she's telling you.
But whatever. What about, my husband and I love coming here because I don't want to cook, so we do utilize it a lot and very happy. What I don't see, in my opinion, quite enough blast, whether it's from the foundation. Like this Friday, a couple Fridays ago, I think Lynn set up, you know, the music. That really brings people out. And for so many of us who live here, to have something like that, I just think we need more of that, whether it's Crave. I mean, we're paying Crave X amount every month, and I'm wondering what they do run other clubs, what kind of ideas they come up with versus you and your team.
That is the number one thing on our agenda today. That is number one on the agenda, and it has to do with getting people like Garrett's here. I talked to, I mean, we subsidize the music piece of it, it's minimal, minimal for what you bring in. Meaning it, when I say we subsidize, it goes in part of our expense in terms of how we operate it. And then it gets charged to the restaurant in terms of, that price. And the revenue it generates. The last time we had music in here, we did $6,800. It was probably one of the highest revenue days we had. We are working as a team to try to get the marketing, the communication, and as Nate mentioned yesterday, a place that's fun, a place that's going to attract people, and that's what we're working to achieve. So this is on our agenda at 3 o'clock.
So Paul, there are some comment and questions from residents online.
Right. So the first question was when Rich was talking about transparency. I think we covered that in that the fact that we're going to start sending out actual numbers each month compared to our projections. So we see how we're doing compared to the projections. So we can see live how we're doing each month in the revenues for Nest. Do we really want non-team members trying to manage the financials of Nest? Why isn't Chase being held accountable for the team with his expertise? Well, they are held accountable, but however, this is still our restaurant. We have to make sure it's run properly. The people we have in place on the committee probably combined have over 100 years of experience in food and beverage. That's why we chose them to be on the committee, to be as an oversight committee to make sure that the numbers, even though we do trust Chase and Craig to do the job right, we still have to, oversee things. So that's why that group's in place.
Also, the finance committee, let's not forget them. These guys have a lot of experience in this.
True.
district.
Very true.
I'd like to mention that, that whenever we set this committee up, Steve Burke and also Jerry Carbone, our previous treasurer, both had this genius idea away from each other. Both of them told me on almost the same time that we need a committee to oversee, not just accept whatever comes in. And both of them had this genius idea and put this wonderful man, Bob Giannetti, on the committee. Bob works all the time. In fact, I was at a meeting this week about all these things that Matt just mentioned. And it is kind of humorous to find that each question that's been mentioned, and even all the different areas of Rich's question, with the exception of information to the community, all these things were just in day before yesterday's meeting. And Bob is already, they're on his to-do list. They've been there, some of them been there a long time. He's working away. He treats it like a job. Very much appreciate all the effort that he's putting in. So the oversight committee is a very good idea. They're doing a great job, and they have the purpose in mind of just what you're asking.
Paul, I managed to hit dismissed on this thing, so there's a question.
Yeah. So the last question was the homeowner asked when you mentioned earlier that we're going to cut back or hold back on other spending until we find out how Nest is doing. They were asking what kind of spending were you talking about?
So the foundation has a number of initiatives that we're looking at this year. One of which is a landscape plan, redo the landscaping on the campus. That's on hold. The board has considered a single platform software system for the entire foundation, including port sports and all of the foundation's accounting and dining requirements. This is going to be a big upgrade. It's going to change our website for the better. It's going to have a much better user experience design, but it's expensive. And so we are putting that on hold for right now while we assess what's going on here financially. There are a number of other projects and purchases that are not essential in the board's view that will have to be put on hold. And we'll just keep an eye on this. And as people, we've had a number of people in the community, which is a common occurrence, ask for certain things for various projects, and they all go on a list, and we consider them as we can. Right now, the replacement fund, which Nate mentioned earlier, all of the reserve items that are scheduled to be serviced or replaced that will happen. The money's there. And outside of that, it's just running the day-to-day operations of the foundation, keeping an eye on the money, and not making any new big expenditures until we're certain that we're on sound footing.
Steve, I just wanted to add again to what you were saying. On hold means on hold. We've done extensive investigation into the landscaping plan and also looked at a single platform that we could use here. And so we're very much up to speed to those things going forward once we can do that. And so I don't want it to look as if we're just, not doing anything about any of these things. We're ready to go when it's time to go.
And we do have a couple of other studies that were already in process. For instance, a land use study looking at the actual land of the foundation and contiguous areas of Pelican Marsh with an eye toward future infrastructure development. Obviously, we're not going to embark on any big projects this year, but we're planning. And so in order to plan, you need the data, the information. So the study is done. Also a study looking at the interior space of the community center with an eye toward redesigning some of this space and repurposing some of it to improve utility for the membership. So all of that is going on along with our HR stuff. And so we're working and just not going to try not to spend a lot of money.
And I just want to one more thing. If anybody has any questions about what's going on in Nest or has something they want me to clarify, please feel free. Secondly, I welcome feedback. If they didn't have a good experience, they have an issue, they have a concern, I really want to know. Okay, so please do that for me so that I can then address it as we talk to Craig. Thank you.
Okay, any other further resident comments? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
One just came in on
What?
Melzon asked, what was the software project include? Let's see, was the software project included in this year's budget and what was the cost of that project? No, it was not included in this year's budget per se, but we're having some issues with our current system, especially with the customer experience. So we were just investigating what's out there. But technically, yes, we have budgeted in our budget to pay for a software system for the club management system. So if we were to take on a new system, we would just cancel the current contract and use those monies in the budget and apply it to the new system. Except this new system, just we found out costs a little bit more than we're paying now.
So we have 6 or 7 different software products that we use at the foundation. They would all be eliminated by this one product. And there is some of the administrative work being done here at the foundation is being done by hand. The product that we have, which is an older product, does not have the level of automation that we would like to see here. And we see that the workflows administratively are kind of clunky. We're not really up to current standards on the administrative end of things with software. So what we would like to do is improve that, and this package would allow us to do that. The cost is probably twice what we're spending now on all our software. And like I said, it isn't a life or death situation here with this, so we're not ready to commit to it until we really understand what we're looking at financially this summer. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. A second?
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.